Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget-friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. Before we get into the dinners, I do just want to apologize. If you watch my videos regularly, you'll notice a change in my voice. I have been under the weather for the past couple of days, but I wanted to go ahead and get this video up. So I do apologize for my voice. Just bear with me. We're going to start out. This was not on the meal plan for this week, but it just sounded really good to me. I had some chicken tenders that I needed to use up, and I had some buttermilk that I needed to use up. So I decided to do the Pioneer Woman's chicken strips. I will link her recipe in the description box below for you, as well as all of the other recipes from today's video. I decided to start out by making a Copycat Raising Cane sauce to dip the chicken strips in. To a bowl, I'm going to add in some mayonnaise, then ketchup, and then, so I haven't been to Raising Cane's before, so I don't know how close to, the real thing this sauce is or is not. If you've been and you give this sauce a try, let me know. But when I was looking at many different recipes for this, pretty much all the recipes called for garlic powder. This recipe that I used called for onion powder, and I didn't see any other recipes use it, so I just skipped the onion powder, but of course you could use it if you would like to. We're going to add in some black pepper, followed by Worcestershire sauce, some Dijon mustard. I'm going to give this a really, really good mix. You can taste it at this point and adjust the seasonings to your taste. I'm going to cover this and pop this into the fridge for a couple hours. Next up, I'm going to make a homemade honey mustard. That just sounded good to me for my chicken tenders. I've shared this before on my channel. It's so easy to make honey mustard yourself. We're going to start out again with mayonnaise, and then I like to use yellow mustard. If you prefer Dijon mustard or whole grain mustard, you can of course use that. Now we're going to add in some honey, and then sometimes I add in a little bit of lemon juice, sometimes I don't, just depends on my mood that day. Decided not to today, but I did add in just a little pinch of salt. Again, going to give that a really good mix, give it a taste. You can add a little more mustard, a little more honey, and just like with the Raising Cane sauce, I'm going to pop it into the fridge for a couple hours. Now for the chicken strips. I just loosely follow the Pioneer Woman's recipe. I don't follow it exactly, just kind of eyeball the measurements. To a dish, we're going to add in some flour. This is just all-purpose flour. And then her recipe calls for Lowry seasoning salt, which I'm going to add. And then I decided tonight to also add in some garlic powder, paprika, and then just a little bit of salt. I used the Lowry, so I didn't need a ton of it. And then some black pepper. Now, you can, of course, use whatever seasonings you prefer. You're in your kitchen, so you use what you and your family like. I'm going to mix that flour really, really well, and you really want to mix it well. I mean, you don't want to get like a whole bite of garlic powder or, something like that. So really take a couple seconds and mix that up, and I'm going to set that to the side. In this dish here, I've got some chicken tenders that I marinated in a few hours and some buttermilk. You can add hot sauce to this if you'd like, but I'm just keeping it simple. And then kind of the Pioneer Woman's secret, not so secret method to doing this is she takes a little bit of the buttermilk and drizzles it into the flour and mixes it up. So you get like little bits of crispiness on your chicken. So I'm going to take the chicken out of the milk, dip it into the flour really, and I like to really pack on the flour and get it really nicely coated. I'm going to lay the battered chicken on a sheet pan, and I just let it sit out while my oil heated up, so for about like 10 to 15 minutes or so. I bought this electric skillet on Amazon. It was on sale like months ago, but it was in my garage, and honestly, I just forgot that I had it. I've been trying to use it more frequently, so I added some oil to this. I can't remember if it was canola oil or vegetable oil, but either way, added the oil, and then I preheated it to 350 degrees, and we're going to fry the chicken tenders for maybe 3 to 5 minutes each side. You just want to make sure that the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature, and then I place it on a wire rack over a sheet pan once they were done. For this side, I made my broccoli casserole. I have shared this a few times before on my channel. I'll try to find a video and link that in the description box below for you. But here are the ingredients that I used for it. I've got a bag of frozen broccoli, a can of cream of mushroom soup. You could use whatever cream of blank soup that you all like. I like to add in a little bit of garlic powder. I've got Velveeta cheese, and I had like a part of a block left over that's part of the reason I wanted to make this is to use that up. And then I've got some crackers. These are the Townhouse crackers. You can use that, or Ritz crackers. And then I forgot to show it, but I also need some melted butter. So all I do is combine the Velveeta, the cream of mushroom soup, the garlic powder in a saucepan over like maybe medium-low heat. Once the Velveeta is melted, I add in the broccoli, give that a stir, put it in a greased casserole dish, top it with some buttered crumbled crackers, and then I bake it at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes until it is bubbly and golden brown. Here are the plates. So we've got some chicken strips, the broccoli cheese casserole, and then I've got the honey mustard. Gary has the Raisin Cane's, and we enjoyed this meal. It was so yummy, and Gary really liked that Raisin Cane sauce. The next day was Sunday, and for Sunday dinner this week, I really wanted something very fall-inspired. So I tried this new recipe for a maple pork loin with apples and onions. Here I've got my pork loin, and I bought this last week when it was on sale at Kroger, and as you can see, it was just under $7. I cut this in half, and I put the other half in the freezer for us for another meal. I patted the pork loin dry, and then I'm going to season this up. The recipe called for just salt and pepper, but I have this rosemary salt in my pantry I'm trying to work through, and I thought that would go good with the other flavors, so I'm going to use that. You can use whatever seasonings or herbs you like. I think like rosemary, fresh or dried would be good on this, maybe some thyme, or you can just keep it simple with salt and pepper. Once I've got that seasoned, I'm going to set that to the side, and we're going to get started on the sauce. Now, I doubled the sauce, and remember, the recipe will be in the description box below for you. I'm adding some orange juice, and then the recipe called for apple juice, which I bought, but I don't think Gary remembered that I said I needed it for a recipe, so it got drank. But that's fine. We had some apple cider in the fridge, so I just used that. Next, it was maple syrup, and it was at this point that I realized that this measuring glass was not going to cut it because I had decided to double the sauce last minute. So I poured it into a bigger bowl. I'm going to add in some minced garlic, then some cinnamon, and then you're going to mix this together really well. Now, I will be honest, the cinnamon it didn't want to mix up all the way, but just do it the best you can. Now, to get this started, we're going to sear the pork loin on all sides. So I've got some oil in this skillet. It's on about medium-high heat, and you don't have to worry about cooking it all the way through. You just are searing it to get a good color on all the sides. And a quick note here, if you have one, you do want to try to use an oven-safe skillet to do this, so like cast iron or oven-safe. If you don't have one, no worries. You can just sear it on top of the stove like I'm doing here, and then transfer it to an oven-safe, dish if you have like a baking dish or casserole dish. Now, once we've seared the pork loin on all sides, I'm going to add some sliced onions. We're going to season the onions with a little salt and pepper. Next, we're going to add some apples. You just want to take the core out and slice the apples. Last but not least, I'm going to take that apple juice and orange juice mixture we just made and drizzle that over the apples, onions, and the pork. Now, this is going to go into a preheated oven. This was at 375 degrees. And really, the baking time on this is really going to depend on how thick your pork is. You want to cook the pork until it's at least 145 degrees internal temperature. Mine took about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So I would say, maybe after 30 minutes or so, check it. And like I said, just make sure you cook it until it's at least 145 degrees. Then you want to let it rest for about 10 minutes before you slice it up. The recipe did not say to do this next step, but the reason why I doubled the apple orange juice mixture is because I wanted to turn it into a glaze for the final finished dish. And so what I did was, when I removed the pork to allow it to rest, I poured off the juices from the skillet into this little saucepan. I brought it to a boil, and then I boiled it. I watched it like a hawk because you don't want it to boil over, but I boiled it for maybe 3 to 4 minutes or so until it became really thick. For one of the sides, I'm making some balsamic roasted Brussels sprouts. This is Ina Garten's recipe, but just like with the Pioneer Woman's chicken tenders and most recipes that I quote-unquote follow, I'll use the ingredients, but a lot of times I will just eyeball the measurements. But if you need exact measurements, again, the recipe's down below. So I've got some washed Brussels sprouts. I'm going to cut them in half, add them to a baking dish, and don't judge my full pans. As I mentioned in previous videos, I've been trying to do less dishes on Sunday, so if you don't want to use full pans, don't use them in your kitchen, but I'm in my kitchen. So we're going to season up the Brussels sprouts with some salt and pepper, add some olive oil, give that a toss. Ina's recipe calls for pancetta, but I had bacon on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. And normally I just chop up the bacon and add it, but I want it to be super crispy, so I chopped it up and gave it kind of a head start in a little skillet on top of the stove. We're going to give that a toss, and then I believe the recipe says to cook this at 400 degrees, but I had the oven at 375 for the pork loin, so I just cooked it at 375 for about 25 to 30 minutes or so until they're tender and start to get golden brown and crispy. And as soon as they come out of the oven, drizzle them with a little balsamic vinegar, give them a toss, and then you're good to go. I had a couple sweet potatoes to use up, so I washed them, peeled them, diced them up, and placed them in some water, brought them to a boil, boiled them until they were tender, drained the water off, and then I had this Better Good cinnamon honey butter. I got this at Walmart, needed to use it up, so I added that to the potatoes and mashed them up and added in a little splash of milk. Here are the plates. So we've got the pork loin with the apples and the onions. I drizzled some of that glaze I made, and then we have the Brussels sprouts and the sweet potatoes, and y'all, this dinner, it was delicious. It was so good. Now, Gary, I've mentioned this before, he doesn't love pork chops, which, I mean, that's basically what a pork loin is. Once you slice it up, it's pork chops. But he doesn't love them only because most of the time he feels like they don't have a lot of flavor, and he absolutely loved these. And they were juicy and tender and flavorful, and the onions and when you got a bite of like the pork, the apples, the onions, and that glaze, perfection. It was delicious. And then though we love those Brussels sprouts, and mashed sweet potatoes are just good. So if you all are looking for a really comforting fall dinner that's pretty easy to make, I would give this a try. And this is something that would also be great for Thanksgiving. Not everybody likes turkey, and people look for something that's more affordable or better for a smaller family. And so I would really recommend, if you are a smaller family or you don't like turkey, I'd recommend maybe you trying this for Thanksgiving this year. It was delicious. For dinner the next night, I didn't get a picture, but we just had leftovers from the previous 2 nights. I had the leftover chicken tenders and broccoli casserole, and Gary had some of the leftover pork loin and Brussels sprouts, and that was our dinner that night. The next day is when my sinuses just went absolutely haywire and I started feeling like crud. I woke up in the morning and my throat was just so raw. And so that night I didn't really feel like cooking. I had a can of biscuits in the refrigerator that I needed to use up, and I was like, you know what? Just chicken and dumplings sound good to me, but I didn't have any chicken on hand, so I just did chicken and a biscuit. This is Angie's recipe. I've shared this before on my channel. Her channel name is If the Creek Don't Rise. She is amazing. I love her videos. I love her recipes. I've tried several of them, and this one has become one of my favorites. It is very similar to chicken and dumplings, but it is so easy, and it's great if you're someone like me who loves chicken and dumplings but really prefers the dumplings. I will link her video down in the description box below for you. This is her mom's recipe, and it's so easy. All you do is take a can of biscuits, cut them up. I cut them up because I use the larger biscuits. Her recipe calls for the really small ones from Walmart. And then you mix a can of cream of chicken soup, and then a can of, take the milk to fill up that same can. Mix that milk and the cream of chicken soup, pour it over your biscuits, and then you bake it in the oven, 350 degrees for about 30 minutes until your biscuits are cooked all the way through, and that's it. You can sprinkle it with some parsley or pepper. And then for Gary, he really wanted pizza, so he grabbed this fresh-shredded pizza we had in our freezer, and he baked it according to the package instructions and sprinkled a little pizza seasoning on top, and that was our dinner that night. For dinner the next night, I had Moroccan chicken on the meal plan, but I'd forgotten to marinate it. So I decided to just do some baked barbecue chicken instead. Don't have a recipe for this, but here's what I did. I've got my oven preheating to 375 degrees. Here I've got some chicken thighs. These happen to be bone-in, skin-on. You can use whatever you prefer, what you can find on sale. I do like to cut off some of the extra skin and fat on those. And then I'm going to season these up. You can use whatever seasonings you like. I'm going to use the Kinder's barbecue blend seasoning. And I just seasoned both sides of the chicken. And then I'm going to pop this into the preheated oven. And you want to bake this until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature. Mine normally take about 45 minutes or so. Now, once they were almost to 165 degrees internal temperature. I brushed them with some Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce on both sides and then let them finish cooking so that that barbecue sauce gets really nice and sticky. Along with this, I did Mandy and the Makings green beans. I'll link that down in the description box below for you. I've shared that many times before on my channel. And then for the other side, I just did some macaroni and cheese. This is just the Great Value Deluxe macaroni and cheese, just according to package instructions. Here are the plates. So we've got some of the chicken, the green beans, and macaroni and cheese. Easy dinner to put together, and it was really good. The chicken thighs, especially with the bone in, skin on, they just stay so juicy and they have so much flavor in them. So yeah, this was delicious. The next night was Halloween, and if you're new to my channel, it's my husband Gary and I, and then we have our 2 fur babies, Happy and Pepper. We do not have any human children. But even though it's just the 2 of us, I still try to do something special for us for holidays. And so every year we have, Gary calls it our Halloween party. We normally do snacks, and then we'll watch a Halloween movie while we hand candy out to trick-or-treaters. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to make several different snacks. I'm going to start out by making a dip that I'm using the recipe of a cracked out corn dip from the plain chicken, but we're going to make it look like a jack-o'-lantern, and I halved her recipe, by the way. So in this bowl here, I'm going to add in some softened cream cheese. Next, I'm adding in some sour cream. And I didn't try it, obviously I'm using sour cream, but I'm sure you could do Greek yogurt instead of the sour cream if you'd prefer to do that. Now we're going to add in some dry ranch dressing mix, and I use this like crazy, so I keep this big tub. You can use just the packet. Now I'm going to give that a really good mix, and we're going to add in some cooked and crumbled bacon. I'm using just the stuff from the bag just to keep it easy. Now for the cheese. In the dip itself, I used half the amount of cheese that her recipe called for, and you'll see why in just a second. So once I've added that in, I'm going to add in some corn. I think her recipe calls for frozen corn, which you can use, but I just used a can of corn. We're going to give that a good mix, and now we're ready to place that into our greased baking dish. And because I'm making this into a jack-o'-lantern, I made sure to grab a round baking dish. Now, I took that, the cheese, you know, that I said I only used half for the actual dip, and then I'm taking the rest of that, adding it on top, and then you're going to bake this in a preheated oven at 375 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes until it gets bubbly. Now, normally you'd stop right there and serve it, but we're going to make this into a jack-o'-lantern. So I took a couple, well, actually 3 blue corn tortilla chips, and I just picked out, you know, ones that looked most like a triangle. We're going to make the face of a jack-o'-lantern, and then for the smile, I used some sliced olives. Isn't that cute? It's so easy, and that corn dip was really good. I really liked it. Now, I had these chicken jalapeno cheddar smoked sausages in my fridge that really needed to be used up, and Gary requested pigs in a blanket, so I said, hey, we'll use that. So I've got these crescent rolls, and I've shared this before. I'm sure you know how to make pigs in a blanket, but all I did was take the crescent rolls, unroll them, cut them into little strips, wrap them around the sausages to resemble mummies, place them into the oven. It was at 375 degrees, and I baked them for about 15 minutes until they were golden brown. For the eyes, you can use candy eyes. You could do like sliced olives, ketchup. I used a little bit of mustard, and yeah, super cute. And those chicken jalapeno cheddar sausages were delicious. The sausages had like chunks of cheese and jalapeno in them. I mean, they were obviously had a little kick to them with the jalapeno, but they were really good. I would get those again. If you saw my last grocery haul, I mentioned that I'd got these little balls of mozzarella at Kroger on markdown, and I'd made a pasta salad with most of them, but I had just a few left over. And a year or so ago, for one of my Halloween videos, I made some eyeball capreses. I'll link that video in the description box below for you, but so easy. Here's what I'm going to use to make them. I've got some fresh basil, those little mozzarella balls. I cut them in half, and then some grape tomatoes is what I had on hand. I would have preferred to have had like some round, either like the cherry tomatoes or Roma tomatoes, but I'm using what I got on hand. And then I'm using some balsamic glaze. All you do is just lay down the basil, add the tomato, add the mozzarella, a little dot of the balsamic for the eye, and that's it. You've got your eyeball caprese. I've also shared these mozzarella stick witch's fingers before. I'll link that video down below. So easy. All you do is cook up some mozzarella sticks according to the package instructions, and then you take some sliced almonds and put them into the end so that they look like fingernails. Now, I only did a couple just for, you know, the purposes of having them look like witch's fingers, because it was just Gary and I was not about to do that with all those mozzarella sticks. Next, Gary requested some ham pinwheels. Again, I've shared this before. We make this every Christmas and for different occasions. These are so easy. All you do is take ham. I like to use the rectangular ham, pat them dry with some paper towels, and then add some chive cream cheese, roll them up, put them in the fridge for maybe an hour, and then you just slice them into little pinwheels, and they are so yummy. Now for something sweet, I'm going to make a Halloween s'mores dip. So first up, you need some kind of chocolate. I'm using a Hershey's chocolate bar. You can do chocolate chips. You need marshmallows of some kind. I've made this before using just regular marshmallows, but I've seen on Instagram and Pinterest where people have used these Halloween peeps, so I wanted to do that to keep it festive. And then to dip, I've done this before, obviously, with graham crackers. You know, it's traditional with s'mores. I thought it would be fun to do these Scooby snacks because I thought they would look like little bones. And then I also had these club crackers. These are new and a limited edition, the cinnamon sugar. I thought that would be yummy in there. Now all you do is in a greased baking dish, you lay down your chocolate. We're going to add marshmallows to that, and then this is going to go into a preheated oven. I had mine set at 375 degrees for the other thing, so I just baked it for about 10 minutes or so until the chocolate is melted and the marshmallows, you know, of course, get gooey and melty. Here's what it looked like when it was done. And to be honest, I wanted to use the ghost peeps for this, but I couldn't find any in my local stores, but the pumpkins were still cute. Now to serve this up, I just put this on a platter with those graham cracker snacks, the club minis, and then I had some pretzels, so I decided to set that out. And I really love this dip with the pretzels, so it was really good. But you could also serve this up with like some cut up apples, pretzel rods, do different, dippers, and it's a quick and easy little dessert. If you love s'mores, you'll love this. It's so much easier than making s'mores over the campfire. You don't have to worry about your marshmallow falling off. But I also, last but not least, made a quick punch. Just did a small container of orange sherbet with about a half of a 2-liter of Sprite, and this is what our little snack table looked like. So we just ate throughout the night. We watched the new Haunted Mansion, and then just gave candy to the trick-or-treaters. Tried to keep Happy and Pepper from going nuts and barking their head off every time the doorbell rang. But we had a good evening. I hope you, if you celebrate, I hope you had a happy and safe Halloween as well. Now, for the last dinner of this week's video, tonight's dinner was also off a meal plan, but I'm sure you can tell by my voice, still wasn't feeling very well. I just wanted something, super warm and comforting, so I made creamy Italian chicken and rice. Again, I know I'm like a broken record to this video this week, but I have shared this many times before on my channel. It has its own dedicated video, which I will link down below, but it's super easy. All you do is take some chicken. I use chicken tenders tonight. Normally I do chicken breast. You can also do frozen chicken just straight from the freezer. Add a little dry Italian dressing mix, a little splash of chicken broth, package of cream cheese, cream of chicken soup, and you just cook it until the chicken is at least 165 degrees internal temperature and is tender. I like to remove the chicken and dice it up. You can shred the chicken if you'd like, and then I prefer it over rice, so that's how I had it this night. Gary prefers it over pasta. I had one of those like bags of the Barilla microwavable pasta, so I just popped that in the microwave for him. And that was dinner tonight. All right, that is it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you liked this video, got some dinner ideas from it. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.